Welcome to Don't Mind Me, I'm Different, the podcast where I kick down the barriers and myths surrounding ADHD in the workplace. Whether it's navigating the office chaos, trying to break this stigma, or learning what is this thing called ADHD, I'm here step by step to advocate, educate, and empower you in any way that I can. Get ready to own your difference and shine on the job. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. I am not a professional. I am just a guy sharing his experience with ADHD. And if you do need help, please reach out to a professional, because there are many out there that can really make a huge impact in changing your life. Hey guys, welcome back. And in this series, I'm going to be going deeper into depression, the root causes behind that, mindsets that can contribute to it. And in the end, we're going to be talking about ways to overcome and deal with depression in a healthy and effective way. And stay tuned to the end, because I have a big reveal. So bear with me. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So this is a topic that is very that I've struggled with my whole life, as long as I can remember. I can't remember when it started, but I do remember that, you know, it was filled with loneliness, not being accepted, you know, particularly by my father. Like, you know, and before I proceed any further, I want to let you know that, like, I know that, you know, I love my dad, and I know that he was doing the best that he could. And, you know, I just don't think that he was capable of giving me what I needed at the time, and I didn't understand that's what I needed. But, you know, deep down, looking back at it, like, I just never felt good enough, no matter what I did. So that became who my identity. And, you know, I can remember a time when I seriously contemplated suicide, and I never told anyone about this. And so you guys are going to be the first, because I was ashamed of it. And you know, so there was a time in my life, a point where I thought about jumping off the roof of a building, and, you know, or whatever way that I could leave this planet, because at that time I didn't have a job. I was using and dealing drugs, or at least I thought I was. And, you know, I recently just lost my car, and, you know, going on like on a drug run, and ended up hitting another car on the way back because it was rainy. So I was just so low and felt so worthless that I had, you know, really planned on doing it. But the only thing that really stopped me was, you know, the thought that, like, suicide is weak, and, you know, how would that affect my family and my sister, who I was living with at the time. And you know, and honestly, like, I don't think I could have went through with it. But like I said, I never told anybody about it. And I think if I had a space to talk about that, or that things could have turned different. I can remember, not, like I said, not feeling worthy enough, feeling inadequate, and wanting to be accepted, but not knowing where that came from, or even how to get that. Because I wasn't talking about it. I was talking to therapists, but I wasn't talking about that. I was only going because I was being told to do that. And anything that's helpful, it's not going to help unless I'm willing to use it. Yeah, I hope that resonates, because you're not alone. This is something that I continue to struggle with. Although it is not as severe as it used to be, and it's only through a deeper understanding and exploring that and talking about it that I've been able to get to this point and overcome it in a way that I can manage my life, and I can even, to a degree, control it. When it does start to arise. But however, it is a silent epidemic. And that's what really gave me the motivation to do this episode. And if you're like me and you struggled with thoughts of suicide, please don't hold it in. Talk to somebody or dial the suicide hotline at 988.
I'm going to elaborate and tell you on what type of depression I have. I have the type of depression to where as though, my mom is 73 years old. I'm only 33. Yeah. And my dad, he's deceased. My dad was deceased when he was probably 65.
Okay.
My dad did heroin. Not having a supportive system.
Depression? I've been my own depressed every now and then. Definitely know people that are depressed. For me, it's very demotivating. For me, it's hard to get out of bed, hard to get myself dressed, hard to do the things I'm supposed to do every day. The standard going to work, taking care of whatever I need to take care of, doing laundry, those simple things that are very easy for other people to do just become way harder when I'm feeling a little depressed.
Oh yeah, I'm bipolar as well.
Okay, so what does that feel like for you?
Well, when my anxiety or depression get on, if my meds or something is off balance or I'm going through a lot of stress, that will kick off the ADHD. So then the anxiety will trigger the ADHD, and it's harder.
In terms of what you're saying, I just feel as though it's a fact. A lot of people don't get to talk about depression and anxiety and stuff like that. So what you're doing, it's a great cause, and I feel as though you should keep going. Being as though you just told me what you just told me about what you got going on. Yeah. I feel like you should keep it pushing, because you never know how you got me to talk to you. A lot of people go through, and that's serious. I respect you for that. A lot of people go through depression and anxiety and stuff like that, but they don't talk about it.
Yeah. And they feel they're all alone.
And that's big.
All right. What is the connection? So how do these two things linked? So bear in mind that these issues can cause more mood disruptions than just depression. However, this study has been done with depression as a focus. So as I said before, depression is a silent epidemic, and this needs to be talked about, because more people with ADHD are more susceptible to being depressed than normal people. So how they coexist, both are linked to disruptions in brain chemistry, particularly unbalanced dopamine and serotonin levels, leading to a neurochemical imbalance, which that particularly plays out in my life. Is like I can be so high like because my dopamine and serotonin levels are where they need to be at, or maybe a little higher, and I'm thinking I can conquer the world. Like I can go out and make all these crazy plans, and I'm gonna make 10 podcast episodes tomorrow, or whatever that may look like. And a couple days later, or the day that it comes to actually do it, my dopamine levels are non-existent. They've hit rock bottom or crashed. And I'm thinking, what's the point? Like, I'm so down in the dumps and depressed because, like, I don't understand that the chemical imbalance in my own body. So my thing is, like, I'm like wondering what these things actually do. What does dopamine do? What is it responsible for? So here's a little breakdown, a little science. So dopamine, and this all comes from the Cleveland Clinic. And so what dopamine does is responsible for is reward and motivation. Dopamine gets released in the brain when you do something enjoyable or beneficial, such as eating a great meal or having sex, winning a game, or even earning money. This can motivate you, reinforcing behaviors and potentially influence addiction. So, movement. A burst of dopamine at the start of a movement triggers voluntary action and regulates its vigor. Learning and movement also helps you get started and stay going when learning something new. It's responsible for mood, sleep and arousal, attention, behavior and cognition, and also lactation. So too much can lead to impulse control issues, such as hyper competitiveness, aggressive behavior, feeling energized, euphoric, or unable to sleep. However, too little can lead to a lack of motivation or excitement, fatigue or lethargy, reduced alertness, difficulty concentrating, poor coordination, or movement difficulties. So that really explains a lot of why that's so integral. So the next one that I was curious about is serotonin. And this one is responsible for mood. It's a natural mood booster. Sleep works with melatonin to help regulate sleep and wake cycles. So it helps get you to sleep. Digestion, it controls appetite and how the bowels work. Wound healing, it releases platelets to help in the healing process to tissue damage. Also, blood clotting causes the arterioles to narrow and slows bleeding. And learning and memory, it's found to be working in that region of the brain. So too much can lead to shivering, anxiety, confusion, agitation, or restlessness, insomnia, nausea, and even high blood pressure and irritability. So too little can lead to feelings of emotional sensitivity, sadness, irritability, depression, anxiety, and overall mood swing. So this is something that's really helpful when it comes to navigating around depression. So when you don't have this, like, it makes sense. The last one that I was interested in and curious about was cortisol, which is also known as the stress hormone. So this is responsible for stress response. This hormone helps the body to respond to stress or danger. So it's a good thing. You need to be able to react very quickly to any type of danger. So this needs to be very present and very active in order for us to survive. But oftentimes it gets overreactive. It's also responsible for metabolism and controls the body's use of fats, proteins, and carbs, blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. It suppresses inflammation, regulates the immune function, and regulates the sleep and wake cycles so that you can wake up. Too much cortisol can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, anger, euphoria, irritability, emotional liability, depression, fatigue, headaches, intestinal problems, weight gain, and increased blood pressure. When cortisol levels burn at a high enough rate for a long enough time, it will start to burn through other necessary chemicals. So this is important to know. That's why, like, when you're in a high stress environment, you can actually limit the amount of dopamine and serotonin that you produce because you're unable to produce it. So that's why it's important to talk about stress and to understand that you need to do things to eliminate stress and reduce it, because it can lead to further health complications down the line. One way to reduce cortisol levels is to limit your caffeine intake. Taking care of your mental health requires more than just reducing stress. So too little can lead to depression, irritability, apathy, difficulty managing stress, and feelings of fatigue. Abnormally low levels of cortisol can be a sign of Addison's disease, which requires medical attention. Yeah, these next ones that I'm going to be talking about were eye-opening for me, that this could actually affect depression. But it makes a lot of sense, and I hope that it's enlightening for you as well. And all of these were taken from a series called 7 Steps to Freedom from Anxiety, Depression, and ADHD with Naturopath Jodi Gozzard, and that's available on Apple Podcast. So she breaks it down in such a way that, I can't even begin to match. So I'm just going to give you briefly a brief overview of what I learned. So the first one that she talked about was allergies. And this can be either a food or chemical sensitivity or intolerance, which causes the blood pressure to drop. And that causes the blood pressure to the brain to drop, and oxygen to your brain is limited. And when that happens, your dopamine and serotonin levels go down, causing you to lose control of histamine levels, which can cause migraines. Histamine levels is something that helps your body respond to allergy triggers and also affects your mood. So because you lack the proper enzymes, most of the time what happens is you retain more fluids and your reaction to the environment worsens. Certain chemicals and additives and preservatives are actually known to amplify that effect and even affect fertility and cause miscarriages, including BPAs, parabens, which are preservatives in foods, cosmetics, and hair care, pesticides, and heavy metals, a couple of which are arsenic and aluminum, which is crazy that these things are actually still found in food. And she talks about the quality of food being a factor in this. Well, the good news is that there are tests that you can take to see exactly what your allergies and intolerances are, called whole blood allergy test, or an IgG test. And you can get that by asking your doctor. And eliminating those foods can or chemicals can restore your gut balance in as little as 3 to 6 months. So that leads us into our next topic, which is gut health and the second brain. So why is it called the second brain? So the gut is often called the second brain because it has an extensive network of neurons and neurotransmitters known as the enteric nervous system, or ENS, which mirrors those found in the brain. This connection has implications for mood, immune response, and overall well-being. So basically, what goes on in the brain also is connected to the gut. So you can't have one that doesn't affect the other. So when there is poor gut health, there's often depression, irritability, impatience, and automatic negative thoughts. So in your gut, there's good and bad bacteria. When there's more bad bacteria, that's when you have the imbalance. So one of the good bacteria is called E. coli. And its job is to convert food, like a food source, like protein, into amino acids, and that's into a form that we can use to make body chemicals. So this bacteria is responsible for the actual production of neurotransmitters. That's why it is important that we have a healthy gut flora. And that is called, another good bacteria is called L-lactic acid. And this helps with behavior, sleep, and muscle function and movement. Now, a bad bacteria would be, for instance, streptococcus. And that's usually gotten when you go overseas and it's born in the mouth through like a water source that our body isn't used to digesting. So whenever you go over to another country, you might get a small stomach ache. And then months later, it develops into this D-lactic acid, which grows over time. And this is what can amplify feelings such as extreme depression and anxiety by suppressing the ability for your body to produce the hormones that it needs. So the good news is that this can be alleviated with antibiotics or antimicrobial herbs. And this is going to be the last one that I go over because I understand it's a lot of information. And that one is the importance of a balanced diet. So I've actually have some experience with this. And that was after I had went to see a dietitian, and I personally just wanted to lose some weight. I wanted to get rid of my belly, which, I'm still working on, but I was able to lose 30 pounds by seeing a dietitian and just, having a balanced diet, is key. And I was able to lose the weight. I felt so much better. I felt more self-confident. And I also was able to get off high blood pressure medication that I was on through the advice of my general practitioner. And, I continue to do my best. It's been a struggle through the holidays to continue to maintain, the importance of having a balanced diet. And so macronutrients is the breakdown of proteins, fats, and carbs. What you need to pay attention to, no matter what your diet is, your food intolerances. Because eating so that you aren't producing a lot of insulin, which can result in inflammation, and considering whether the food you eat will feed the wrong bacterias. So inflammation can be caused by nicotine, marijuana, and gum disease, which can lead to depression. Overdoing carbs can suppress the good bacteria, making sure that we have enough proteins and fats, because that will compromise our ability to heal. So all of these different categories of food that we eat are important because they all contain something that we need, that our body needs to produce the chemicals that we need to live a balanced life. Many vitamins and minerals come naturally from vegetables and grains, which convert the nutrients in our bodies to building blocks. Without this food group, we run the risk of not being able to break down those vitamins or use them at all. Protein is broken down into amino acids, which converts to dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline, and energy and sustains energy levels throughout the day. Fats coat the nerves with a myelin sheath, which speeds up the process of thoughts and actions. Our brains are made up of DHA, and this comes from fish oil. So eating fish is an essential part of brain function and brain health. And our brain does need glucose too. So high brain activity throughout the day means you probably need more glucose. And a high energy, like you're expending a lot of energy throughout the day, you might need more carbs in your diet. And fat and protein are good after a workout, not so much carbs. And when you crave sugar, that typically means that your blood sugar has dropped. Just be careful, because sugar is a highly addictive and pro-inflammatory substance that can also lead to many other health complications, including shrinking your brain. So the nutrients that we need to be healthy are in so many different types of food groups. That's why achieving a balanced diet, again, is so important. Hormones affect us in so many different ways through the food that we eat, and that directly affects our neurotransmitter. Seeking the help of a dietitian is really key here. So I know we went through a lot and it's depressing, so I want to give some levity to the situation. And this comes from a article on headsupguys.org, and it's from a guy named Ryan Smith from Canada. And it says, what advice would you give to other guys fighting depression? So he says, depression often takes time to work through. Try not to get caught up in the sacrifice needed to work through it. A year ago, I dropped out of university to confront my depression and beat myself up for it. A year later, I can say that it was the right decision. There can be value in short-term sacrifice for personal development or career growth. But in my opinion, there's nothing more important than your long-term mental health. Whoever is reading this, I wish nothing but peace for your mind and happiness for your soul. And so on that note, when we come back, stay tuned. I'm going to go through the rest of this list of potential triggers for your depression. And yeah. Thank you guys for sticking with me to the end. It was definitely a tough subject, but a subject that needs to be talked about, and that doesn't get talked about enough. If you have any stories that you would like for me to talk about on the show, please send them in to my email address in the show notes. And as always, if you love this show and you want to contribute, there is a way that you can. Every little bit helps, but the more that you give, the more that you get. And you can find that at patreon.com/Ron Sowers, and that's patreon.com/RONSOUERS. And as always, thank you for listening. Subscribe, and may the source be with you.